Thank you once again for tuning in to the Wise Wolf Project. I'm your host, Wise Wolf. This segment is going to be called Utter Nonsense, and what it's basically going to be are things that I see happening in the world today, specifically America, that I just find nonsensical. I find ridiculous, silly, stupid, whatever. Throw any adjective you want to describe it. Today I have five things I want to cover. About a year and a half ago, I got a revelation, and that revelation said that the invisible is more powerful than the visible. In other words, it's the things that you can't see that really mean the most. And in this world of Lindsay Lohan, Paris Hilton, things of that nature, we really have gotten distracted from what's really important. A lot of things get headline news, which, quite frankly, have no productive bearing on our lives. If anything, they dumb us down to what's really happening. And as it is so here in America, it was so in Rome back in the day when Rome was the empire, and they had the bread and circuses where they would give food to the masses in the form of bread because there was unemployment there high, and if you have poor people, a lot of poor people that outnumber the rich and wealthy and nobility, if they begin to be perturbed, discouraged, dismayed, what have you, they can start a revolution, and the politicians don't want that, so they gave them bread. What they also did was, in the form of circuses, what you think of as those like in the movie Gladiator, where the main character is put into this ring of really torture for the amusement of the people. And at that time, I'm pretty sure nobody there was rich other than those who were in control. The mass majority of them were probably poor people or middle class, but certainly not rich, and certainly probably had better things to do with their time. But the government puts on these dog and pony shows to distract you from what's really going on. So this is where I want to step in and kind of fill in some gaps, some things that I think are just ridiculous. And so I titled this bit "Utter Nonsense." And the first thing is federal government. The federal government is against the state of Arizona to enforce its own borders. I'm going to put links to these below, but I just wanted to talk about that briefly. Now, here it is. You have, number one, illegals coming in through the state of Arizona. Not just Arizona, but let's concentrate on Arizona, since this seems to be a hot topic. And just in case you've been in La La Land, this is what's been going on. The state of Arizona has put in place a law that basically says they can arrest illegal immigrants. It's a widespread law, and the reason they've had to do this is because our federal government won't enforce its own borders. Now, I have a problem with that. Not with the law, with the federal government. I'm actually in agreement that we should enforce our borders. I mean, what does a sovereign power do? It should enforce its borders. Now, at a time when we can send troops to Iraq, to Afghanistan, and now I'm finding out that we're actually fighting in Pakistan without congressional approval, or maybe it is congressional approval, but it's not. It's not in the open. Uh, we can send troops to die over there, but we can't send a handful of people to help our fellow Americans to ward off drug lords, drug this, drug that. Um, it's ridiculous. I mean, what kind of? I'm really. I voted for Obama reluctantly, and I must say that I'm very appalled at what's been going on. I'm not in favor. I'm very much against his policies. I think the man is probably a smart guy, probably fun to hang around, but that has nothing to do with his policies because they affect you and I just the same. And while I don't stay in Arizona, I mean, I stay in Texas, which borders Mexico. I mean, we have some issues ourselves with our own borders, and it is not a good thing that you have open war against our American constituents from Mexican drug lords. Negative. Negative. That is ridiculous. What more can you say? We'll fight for freedom for other people, but not for ourselves. And even the freedom that we supposedly are fighting for there really isn't really freedom, but, you know, what have you. All right. Nevertheless, the second is several states say collecting rainwater illegal. I think like Utah and Colorado and a few others are basically making it illegal for you to have rain buckets. You can't collect the water. Water that falls out from the sky is not your own. It's apparently some corporations that want you to buy their bottled water. It's their water. Give me a break, man. This is what happens when people are focused on the wrong things. Stuff like this gets passed, and it makes absolutely no sense. Now, my grandmother collects buckets of water. She has since I can remember. That's what she's done. And so, if she actually stayed in some of these states that had this law enacted, she would be out. She'd be a criminal. She'd be a criminal. My grandmother. All she likes to do is garden and fish. But she'd be a criminal. Get out of here, man. Get out of here. Number 3. EPA cracks down on farm dust. Apparently, the environment in which farmers in Oklahoma are conducting business is a little too dusty. You know, that ground that you have to plant corn and cotton and rice, watermelons, whatever it is, what have you. It's a bit too dusty. The ground is a bit too dusty, so the EPA is going to start. I'm not exactly sure what they're going to do. Fine the farmers for having too much dust in their fields. And I find it hypocritical to fine farmers, which I find ridiculous, who are essentially, you know, average farmers, not rich. They're just trying to make a living like everybody else, and say absolutely nothing when it came to fair of the rescuers at 9/11, that the air quality. They said absolutely nothing. They've said absolutely nothing and done absolutely nothing to the Corexit being sprayed in the Gulf of Mexico by BP at the behest of BP. Exactly where's the line? EPA. Exactly where's the line? Dust, which is natural to life, I mean on Earth, to farming in general on the face of this planet, no, that's wrong, but corrects it, which is clearly not a something that comes naturally from the Gulf of Mexico, which is being sprayed and has been, even though they've been told not to. That's okay. Is that how we do this thing now? Give me a break, man. I wish I could roll some heads, man. I really wish I could. Number 4, GM buys subprime creditor. Now, this story, GM is 61% owned by you, the taxpayer, the American taxpayer, myself included. And the problem they had before they even went into bankruptcy was that GMAC, their subprime financial arm, had a little bit too much subprime borrowing, much like these banks did, and which is why they needed the bailout, which is one of the reasons why they needed to go into bankruptcy, to alleviate them from their debt burden. And now that they're out, they're going right back and purchasing another so that they can get more subprime borrowers. Well, that was the problem in the first place. Does this make any sense to anyone? Does this say, is this really what we think? And our government is in control of this. And apparently, they've said nothing. The government, which owns 61%, has said absolutely nothing about it. They've done absolutely nothing about it. So what are we to think? What are we to think? Number 5, last but not least, deceit in economic data. Now, this morning we got the ISM report. And for those of you who don't know, it basically talks about manufacturing. So the people who actually make something that others buy, these things are tracked. The manufacturing sector grew. It grew. That's what the title says. But once you actually get into the story, into the actual story, click on the link, it shows that manufacturing has slowed for a third month. Now, supposedly the stock market that is, rallied this morning because of this manufacturing data, because it shows that there's still growth in manufacturing. Well, and for those of you who don't know, I'll read a little bit of this. Okay, the Institute for Supply Management said on Monday its index of national factory activity fell to 55.5 in July from 56.2 in June, the third consecutive monthly decline. And this is what I wanted to get to. A reading above 50 reflects expansion. However, July's measure was the lowest reading since December. So because it is above 50, it shows that the manufacturing sector, is in fact growing. However, it's been declining for the last 3 months. And once you actually go to their site, you actually see the trend going down for the past 3 months. That's a good indicator. So but when I first read the article, it said that there was growth, which is good. But if you go off of just the title, you would be it's very misleading, because while it's up, it's not telling you the trend. And the people here have an instant grits mentality. They only want sound bites. They only want the little piece and don't dig into what these things really mean. And that's what I mean by the deceit of economic data.